You know this man, you've seen his maps. He's the journalist who travels to the world's most complex places to tell the stories that connects us all. He's built an empire on making you understand the world. But what if I told you that the man who's become one of the most recognizable faces in modern journalism started here, as a devout Mormon from a town of just a few thousand people? A kid who struggled so badly with dyslexia that his own mother had to read his own textbooks to him. This is a story of how a 2-year mission in Mexico completely shattered his worldview and created the Johnny Harris the only thing we know. To understand Johnny Harris, you cannot start in the far-flung places he travels. You have to start in Ashland, Oregon, a small town 5 hours from the nearest airport, where life was defined by a clear set of rules and a single powerful faith. Raised in a devout family in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Johnny's world was one of order and certainty. It was a world of black and white, right and wrong. But from an early age, there was a problem. The world of words, the very foundation of scripture and school, was a battlefield. Johnny was dyslexic. School was a nightmare of trying to keep up. While other kids read, he fell behind, feeling like he just didn't fit into the system. One of his blogs, titled "I'm Dyslexic," he admits that his mother used to read his textbooks to him.
By the time I was in middle school, you really start to have to read a lot more. And so that's where my mom started to read to me, like these longer books, which was really embarrassing when you're like an 8th grader and your mom's reading to you. Thank you, Mom. Seriously though, so sweet.
Her voice became the bridge between the page and his mind, and when that wasn't enough, he turned to audiobooks. Eventually, he created his own solution, recording his professor's lectures. He couldn't just absorb information the traditional way. He had to find another path. Instead of writing papers, he'd ask if he could make a video or an infographic. He didn't know it yet, but the struggle was forging his greatest weapon. By being an outsider to the written word, he was forced to become a master of the visual one. He was learning to think in pictures, in maps, in motion. He was building the foundation for his entire future, one creative solution at a time. At 19, like many young men in his faith, Johnny made a choice that felt almost preordained. He volunteered for a 2-year mission and was sent to Tijuana, Mexico. For a boy from a small homogeneous town in Oregon, this wasn't just a trip. It was a journey to another planet. He went with one purpose: to share the simple, certain truths he'd been taught his whole life. But the reality he found was anything but simple. Tijuana was chaotic, vibrant, desperately poor, and endlessly complex. It was a place defined by a very thing that would become his life's obsession: a man-made line on a map, a border. He spent his days knocking on doors trying to preach a message of celestial order. But he spent his nights witnessing the raw consequences of global economics, politics, and history playing out of people's lives. He saw a world that couldn't be explained by the simple doctrines he carried in his backpack. This experience lit a fire in him, merging his dream of becoming a filmmaker with his new obsession with international relations and the lines that divide us. Those 2 years in Mexico did more than just change his career path. They started the process of unraveling. The black and white world he grew up in was suddenly flooded with a million shades of gray. The questions started filling up, and the simple answers just didn't feel true anymore. He returned to the US and enrolled at Brigham Young University, the heart of his faith, but the seeds of doubt were already planted.
I felt deep frustration at the church's claim to have a monopoly over the fullness of truth.
Eventually, after years of wrestling, he made the monumental decision to leave the Mormon Church entirely. The institution that had given him his identity, his community, and his entire framework for life was gone. He was a man adrift, with a new family to support. He and his wife, Liz, had their first child around the time he graduated, but no clear map for what came next. The path forward was anything but straight. His new passion for international affairs led him to a master's degree at American University and to take the notoriously difficult foreign service exam, hoping to become a diplomat. He failed. He was now a husband, a new father, and unemployed with a graduate degree that wasn't opening any doors. These were his years in the wilderness. To pay the bills, he fell back on his visual skills, starting a small video and design company. He was a hired gun, making motion graphics for an architecture firm, doing whatever it took to make ends meet. Then came the turn. He landed a job as a multimedia producer at the Center of Strategic and International Study, a major think tank in Washington, D.C. And here, everything clicked. He was surrounded by brilliant experts on every complex global issue you can imagine. But he noticed a huge problem. They were terrible at explaining their own ideas to the public. They were stuck in a world of dense reports and academic jargon. Johnny had found his calling. He could read a bridge. He could take the overwhelming complexity of geopolitics and using the visual language his dyslexic had forced him to master. This is where the Johnny Harris style was truly born. The fast-paced editing, the kinetic graphics, and especially the maps. With his new style ready to go, Johnny set his sights on a young ambitious media company called Vox. He applied, they rejected him. But just like he found creative ways around reading, he found a way around the normal application process. He sent them a video resume showing them what he could do instead of just telling them. This time, it worked. At Vox, he was initially an animator, but he had a bigger idea, an idea born on the streets of Tijuana, a series that would travel the world and tell the human stories behind the lines on the map. He called it Borders. The pitch was met with skepticism. It was expensive, ambitious, and totally unproven. So, Johnny did what he'd always done. He bet on himself. He took a tiny budget of just $2,000 and flew to Cuba alone. No crew, no producer, just his camera and his vision. The episode he produced was raw, personal, and utterly compelling. It was a hit.
This guy is an electrical engineer, but he opened up a barber shop in his house and makes 10 times more than he would in his field of study.
Vox greenlit the series, and for the next 3 years, Borders became his life's work. The series was a massive success, earning 2 Emmy nominations and defining a new genre of web documentary. He was at the top of his game.
I make more ambitious videos on a whole new level. The 2 videos I'm working on are massive fire.
And then in 2020, it was over.
What this represents for me is a very abrupt and unforeseen end to something that I really loved and really worked hard to build.
Vox, citing budget cuts, canceled the show. The series he had built from scratch, the project that was culmination of his entire life's journey, was gone. For many, this would have been a devastating end. But for Johnny Harris, leaving the security as a big company wasn't an end. It was a launchpad. He was now fully independent, and he took the audience he had built and a style he had perfected directly to YouTube. The timing was explosive.
How does the country with the most money and experts in the CDC and a literal pandemic playbook end up with so many deaths?
One of his early independent videos, a detailed breakdown of the US response to the COVID-19 pandemic, was featured on the front page of the New York Times. He followed that up by producing opinion videos for the time, one of which won him another Emmy. His personal YouTube channel grew at a staggering rate, quickly surpassing the audience he had at Vox. He co-founded an educational travel company, Bright Trip, with his wife and fellow filmmaker, Iz. He built a team, a studio, and an independent media company, all on his own terms. The dyslexic kid from a small town in Oregon was now the face of a media empire he built himself. The kid who couldn't decode words on a page now decodes the world for a living.
With the coronavirus that blows my mind. It looks like this.
The young man who went on a mission to spread a single truth now spends his life exploring thousands of them. It's a journey that began with crossing one border in Mexico and has since expanded to cross them all. The only real question is, which border Will he cross next?